Well, cheers, everybody. I am back home. We got in last night pretty, not that late, but it felt like super late. The last time I talked to you guys, um, we were sitting around waiting on a few things at the hostel, and then I guess it's an Airbnb. But Kayla and I decided to go adventuring on our own, and we headed out to get some ice cream and coffee, and we walked right up the road. We saw this pretty sweet aqueduct. Um, Super old, kind of cool. You had to like walk up the drain. It kind of smelled bad, so who knows what was in that water. But then we were like, okay, cool, ice cream place not that far away. Let's just take this turn. And then we took a turn, and then we just kept walking. And we walked and we walked. And we're like, we're downtown. How did we get here? But it kind of turned out nice because it's like the trip came full circle. So we walked around that like main square and down this side street and this side street and looked at this store and that store, and I needed to get a bag anyways to get some of my stuff. So it worked out. Like, we went around, we took some goofy pictures, we ate ice cream. It was super good. What was crazy is the ice cream shop was like right there next to us, and if we'd just taken one turn instead of the other, we would have been there in 2 seconds. But I'm kind of glad we didn't, because Kaylin and I just got to walk around the downtown of Costco, and it was really kind of nice just seeing it and not have been like shaving creamed and water ballooned. And it's like, oh, okay, like I'm glad we came here one more time. Ate the ice cream, got back to the house. A lady came through. It was going to be perfect because she was going to do our COVID test. So she stuck one up my nose. I cry every time I get a COVID test, and I've only had 3, which is not even comparable to most humans. And so I cried a little bit, got my test. She was going to email us the results, no big deal. Kaylin gave her the email. Good to go. We talked to the people that ran the hostel Airbnb that we were staying at, and they had a car come up and pick us up. So we finished packing up, jumped in the car, and off we went to the Costco, and we went to that airport. We kind of blazed through security because security is not like U.S. security there. Basically, it's a metal detector, and they do like look at your bags. So it's just kind of funny because I'm very used to the TSA American style of security, and that's just not what you get in Peru. And so went through security, so we're sitting there and we needed to chill, and like we got there way too early, but whatever. And we were kind of hungry because we were planning on eating dinner, but that airport does not have a place to eat food. But it does have vending machines, and in the vending machines were some Coronas, and we kind of couldn't believe it. So we had to buy some Coronas, and we played cards and just talked, and it was like totally cool. Got on our airplane, no big deal, and let's see, it was not that late, but it was like nighttime, and so all the city was lit up and really beautiful. It's amazing how those lights like scamper up the hills and like make the city what it is, and lots of hills. It's like hiking the trail. So we took off and off we went. Then we got to Lima. We didn't have internet, so we couldn't check before we left Costco for our COVID test. But when we got to Lima, the internet was working. Log in. Kaylin, good to go. She's got her test, where mine should have been, not there at all. And then like her passport number and date of birth, I think, were also messed up. So it's not like hers was perfect, but mine wasn't present. And to get back into the U.S., you have to have a negative COVID test. So we started asking around, found out you could get the test in the parking lot. It'd be helpful if you had an appointment, but we did not. So we ran out there, and thankfully the line was relatively short. Oh, it was also crazy because the taxis guys, the taxi cab drivers, are just insane. And I mean, they're trying to make money. They're trying to get a customer. Super competitive market. Like, I get it. But like, geez, it's hard to walk like outside of the airport without being like bombarded with guys trying to give you a ride. And even like going to get the COVID test, I was like walking there and this guy like stops me and he's like, yo, 10 minutes, I get you a test and it'll be fine. And I'm like, bro, there's a place I can walk 3 seconds to and sign up, and I'll just get the test and sit there for an hour. So that guy was even trying to get me in his cab, but it's just like crazy. And so we're a little crunched for time, and Kaylin and I are pretty stressed, and I don't have any service, and she's just like, well, I'll turn on my cell service. So it was like $10 a day for her, but that was better than not having any ability to do anything. And so we ran out there. She decided that she was going to wait with me, which, like, thank you, Kaylin, because I was pretty nervous about my lack of Spanish ability. And like, I was doing just fine. Like, I could get by and like stuff like that. But like, this was a stressful, I need a COVID test as soon as possible so that we don't miss our flight kind of situation. And that was not very helpful. And so Kaylin decided to come out with me. We get through the line. She even fills out my documents to just make it go faster. Luckily, I had some cash still, some soles, and luckily they took credit cards, so she was even able to get a test because she was nervous about the birth date and passport numbers being off. So we fill out our paperwork, and like it takes zero time to get into the tent to like get your nose poked, but it takes like an hour, just like you're expecting to get the I think the antigens test back. And so we're sitting there, and we're just like watching the time go by because like, wait, great, we get our test and hopefully it's negative. And if it is negative, then we got to go back through security. And so I was optimistic guy, like doing pretty good. Like Kaylin was optimistic. Like we're like hoping everything's going to work out. And finally the lady calls our name. I watch her bags. Kaylin gets the test. I'm negative. Nice. Kaylin's like, hey, you go, like, try to get in line so that we can, like, maybe work our way up to the ticket counter, right? Not security, tickets. And we'll go from there. And I said, okay. So I was like, all right, time to do this. And grabbed my, like, negative test, ran back into the airport, run past all the taxi cab guys, and show the guy my ticket so I can actually get into the doorway. Because they have security at every door. I think it's just to keep like people that aren't supposed to be in there out. And so you finally get in the door just because you have a ticket. Then you like go to the counter, and we were flying American because we were going back into the USA, and then from Miami to LA and LA to Texas. I live in New Mexico now. Back to New Mexico. Okay, so I'm running through the airport. As I'm running through the airport, because the COVID test was on one side and American was not quite on the other, but basically. And so I'm just running across there. I go up, and like all the rope lines were down. I'm like, did they shut down their like stuff? But they didn't. They just were like cleaning up for the night, and like the counters were still open. And so there was this lady, and she like spoke pretty good English, and I was like, here's my passport and like proof that I bought a ticket. Can I get on this plane? And so she starts typing in all the information. She takes my negative COVID test. Boom, Kaylin shows up, which was like good because like, I mean, at that point I had no idea what was her situation. She didn't know mine. And so we were able to get our tickets, and off to security we go. So we're running back, and we get to security. And so the way the security works there is there's like a walled off section with a bunch of doors, and then there's a rope line, but it was empty, and somebody checking in at that rope line. Basically, I think making sure you actually have a ticket again. And so nobody was in there. We just kind of waved at the guy, and the guy just let us go in. He didn't even care. So we go through the doors, and that's where life changes, because everything was kind of working out. We were still having enough time, but not a lot of time, but enough time, especially if the line was going to be empty like the American Airlines check-in ticket line was. It was not. Like, terrible. I mean, people wrapped all the way around it. Like, everybody in security just backed up. Not enough employees. Like, something was going on. And then not only that, but like, after you walk through security, there's this massive line going towards the out of country flights area. So out of country was that way, local flights was that way. So we're like, what? Just about the time like we weave through a couple sections of the rope, and get into the back of the line, and people are coming behind us too. All this commotion happens, and the next thing we know, just everyone's ripping up the rope little divider things and just like running through them like stampede. I felt like I might have been in the Lion King for a second, and to go nowhere, right? The security lines weren't open, and like you couldn't get through them. They were just cramming themselves into this like area. And there is a little checkpoint before you actually go through the metal detectors. And maybe there was like some movement there, and that's where everyone was headed. And so Kaylin starts taking off, and like, I'm not really that way. I like saw those people leaving, and I was just kind of like, where the heck are they going to go? There's nowhere to go. Are they going to just burst through the security lines and screw the metal detectors and just run through anyways? Like, no, nobody did that. And so we're sitting there, and then Kaylin kind of takes off, and I'm like, crap. So like, I can't leave Kaylin. And so I just like follow Kaylin, and we like get up into this line, and then we're just in line forever. And then we finally check our like through the first point, which just basically takes our ticket or passport, and they just scan it. And if the gate opens, then you actually have a flight. I think it's just more little checkpoints to make sure you're actually needing to be in this airport. So we click through that. Great. Now we're in the big line, and this line takes forever. And there was no stampeding happening in this line. There were some cheaters. I mean, there were people that cut in line, and that's just like how it is. And like maybe they like had reasons. I don't know. Like maybe their wife was up there, so they cut through the line, or maybe their flight was already gone for an hour but delayed a little bit and they needed to be up there. I don't know. Our flight, however, was definitely gone if it was going to take off. And we just sit there. And this, my friends, is where Rio gets a lot less hopeful. They had this big clock. This is why I'm less hopeful. They had this big clock, and it was just sitting there and rotating through some advertisements on this TV, and then it'd just pop up with the time. And like, we were clearly gonna miss our flight, and then we definitely did miss our flight, and we're just sitting there like clicking our way through line that would like stop intermittently and just sit for whatever reason. And we can't figure it out. We're just like, wow, like we had a chance, now we have no chance. Kaylin's still a little optimistic. I'm not. I definitely am just like, well, that was the end of that. It was a good time in in Lima. Time to, I guess, like spend some more time actually here in this city. And yeah, eventually we get into the security line. Eventually we go through the metal detector. Then we're put in this other line, right? The one that was going to the international flights. And this lady like comes up to us with a piece of paper and says, all our machines are down. You need to fill this piece of paper out. We're like, okay. Luckily, Kaylin had a pen, and even more lucky, there was a guy behind me from America. I think he said he's from Denver, and his wife, and he had just happened to have a pen and let me borrow it, and we were able to just sit there and fill it out. And we like got edged up close to the front, and this lady comes by asking for American flights, American Airlines. And we're like, ooh, that's us. We are with American. And she's like, oh, great. Here, let me have your names. I think she even took our tickets from us, walked off, came back, was like, okay, like, just keep waiting in this line. Like, I have your information. We're like, okay. So we found out, like, during this time period and, like, more and more waiting, right, the reason behind all this mayhem is, like, the passport identification machines just gone, computers gone. And so they had to go through this whole paperwork issue in order to figure out if people actually belonged here and like were supposed to be leaving, and then how to track them, and then they probably have to store all that paperwork like receipts. So that's what we did, and we waited in line. And as we get closer, there's these two like stewardess type wait ladies, or like the people that would work the ticket check-in lines, wearing like American uniforms, and they like identify us, and they're like, hurry, like get in line, get checked in, and run. And we're like, okay. And they're like 22 or 21, 21, 22, I can't remember. But they were like telling us which gate it was and telling us to run. So Kaylin goes first. She gets checked in and she's gone just while I'm getting checked in. And the guy, like, I guess he needed to like rewrite my information a little bit. So he like goes over some of the letters and like takes them from lowercase to capital. And I'm like, come on, dude, just hurry it up a little bit, because I'm definitely missing my flight. But for whatever reason, the lady's here and she knows my name and she's telling me to run. So he gives me my stuff back and tells me to, have a good flight. And I did, thank you, and I ran. And I ran all the way across the airport, and I'm going trucking. And I have like both my backpacks on, and like one's in front, one's in the back, just moving. And the elevation there is, I guess, high, or I'm just way out of shape to be doing that. So I'm like losing my breath. It can't be that high because the ocean's right there. And so I'm dying, but I look up and I see Kaylin in front of me, and she's like almost to our gate. So that was like good. And the people are still there, and the door to that gate is still open. And it's like 1:30 plus at this point in the morning. And our flight was supposed to leave at 12:40. So that means it should have closed the gate at like, what, 12:25, 15. Yeah. So like, why is the door open? Why are people still at that gate? Why were the American Airlines people telling us to run? They had waited on us. Like, we were the last people on that flight. The moment we walked in the doors, they shut the doors, they closed it all up. They were trying to get us seated, trying to put our bags away. There was literally no place for me to put my backpack. And it's my big hiking backpack with all my gear, and I could not check it. And so finally the stewardess just takes it from me, and I don't even know what she does. And then the people in my seat, they were like sitting there, probably for a while, and like the girl had like taken my seat like in the aisle, and like at this point I didn't even care. I was just like, hey, I'm here. Thanks for enduring all this pain. And so I just sat down in the middle and tried to sleep, but was kind of like sweating and all sorts of stuff. And like the lady next to me on my right, the one on the left was Peruvian, but the one on the right was American. And from like the LA area. So Hispanic, but we were talking and she's like, yeah, like I got to the airport super early and like I was one of the first people in that line, but all the machines went down. So like I've been at this airport for a long time, and then I got on the plane and I've been in this plane for a long time. And like we were there plenty early, like it shouldn't have been a problem, but like with our COVID tests like not coming through, and then the computer system shutting down, and then the stampede in the check-in line, like it's a miracle that we got on that flight. Like I've never seen all that craziness. But we did, and we made it. And like seriously, thank you Jesus. Like that was wild. I should probably still be trying to get back home. And should have spent a night in Lima and all sorts of stuff. So wild way to get on the plane, and like no food and barely any sleep for the past few hours, and like pretty tired, and off we went. Lima is also beautiful at night. The mountains, right, are all in that. And so the city like wraps around them, even like right in the middle of the city, just wraps around the mountains. And so there's these dark spots and places where the lights go up the hill, and really it's gorgeous. So we took off, and it was like a 5+ hour flight to Miami. And most people, were going to miss their connection. Luckily, Kaylin and I's connection, like, because of us being cheap, was several hours more than like a typical layover. And so like we were probably going to make our flight in LA with no problem, or in Miami to LA with no problem. And ultimately we did. Customs kind of took a while because well, we landed and then we were going through all that stuff, and I was standing in line, and Kaylin kind of has like I forget what they call it, but it like lets her go through that process faster, but I don't. And so I was standing in this line, and the person working it just like gets up and walks off. Like that's it. And so I laughed about that, but we got directed to a different line, and I was able to get through that. And then we get back in, and then we had to go through security. That line took forever, but like we managed to made it like right before another plane, because like we walked in about halfway, and then it was just loaded with people. And one of their new machines wasn't working, so you had to use like the classic metal detector, or most people had to just go through one of those like fancy new ones. And so that was like a traffic jam and causing everything to be super slow. But we got through like all that stuff in Miami and got back into the country, and then we got some Einstein bagels, which really just hit the spot, but I was still pretty hungry. They fed us on that flight back from Lima, and I was not expecting that. It was just like a cold sandwich and like a snack. But, sometimes that's all you need in life. So we ate some Einstein bagel. We got on our next flight to LA. We popped off that, just flew. I got some sleep there, but not a whole lot. And landed in LA. Same situation, but a little less time. I was kind of hoping I could see my friends out in California or see Monaco, but like we just did not have enough time, and that kind of sucked. But it's just how it is, because we needed to be back for work. Not today, luckily, and that like would have helped if all our travel stuff got messed up. But I think being able to like be home and like kind of rest, and I already did laundry, is like a super healthy thing. So we got back, and took off from LA, but LA there was a super long delay because a pilot like mishap or whatever the situation was in that situation, something to do with the airlines and waiting on a pilot. So it took a long time after boarding, like an hour and a half after we had already gotten on the plane. So like we waited there for a long time. We were in one of those really tiny terminals, so the food options were pretty bad. Like the sandwich I had was fine and the cup of coffee was good, but it was not like what I was wanting. I was wanting some greasy American fast food. That's what I was wanting. And I get some healthy sandwich food on ciabatta, and it was fine. I'm just being a whiny butt. But we get on the plane, we sit there for a long time. Finally, like, they get the pilot and we take off, and the flight's super smooth back to Albuquerque, like 3 hours or so. We lose that hour because of time change, but no big deal. And yeah, the check-in process and waiting for the bag, because Kaylin was able to check one of hers like for free, so that was cool. And waited on the bag, got to the Jeep, blah blah, no problems. Then we grabbed some Whataburger on the way home, which was super good. Ironically, I wasn't super hungry. And 28 hours after like our first like ride to the Lima or Costco parking lot or airport, we made it home. And yeah, I did not last that long. I went right back to bed. Driving back from Albuquerque was a little tough, those last 20 minutes. But yeah, it's Sunday and March 13th. The trip to Peru was amazing, something I'd never really experienced before. And I'd definitely do it again. Thanks to all the friends that were able to be a part of it, and Emma for coordinating and putting it together. Kaylin willing to travel with me, and the awesome times that we were able to have. And yeah, can't wait to do another adventure. See you guys.